Okay, good morning, everyone. We're going to start in just about a minute. Okay, good morning, everyone. It's Friday, the 4th of September, 2020. Hope everyone is well. So the first thing I wanted to tell you about was, I know that you've probably seen yesterday that the new flu 2020-21 DES came out from NHS England. It is a long document. I haven't had the chance to read it all, but I'm certainly, I know that there'll be a summary coming from us at the CCG, or certainly NHS England, or maybe the BMA. But the only thing I really noticed that was new amongst all the writing was that household contacts of an individual on the shielded list is now eligible for a flu vaccine. So that's something that's slightly different that I picked up on. I'm sure there's a couple of other tweaks. It probably takes a couple of times to read it and find them amongst the 30-40 pages. So keep your eyes out to see if there's anything more coming on that. And the next thing I wanted to tell you about this morning was folate results. So a couple of colleagues have flagged that abnormal folate results are not showing the exclamation mark flag, and they're not going red, and therefore people have accidentally filed abnormal results as normal. So I've personally spoken to the lab yesterday about this, and they found a technical issue and working on resolving this as soon as possible. So just be mindful when you're looking at folate results. If they're abnormal, they may not flag as abnormal. The next thing this morning is cancer pathways I wanted to update you on. So at the peak of the pandemic in April and May, there was a reduction in 2-week wait referrals to NCL acute hospitals by around about 70% actually. And as we probably expect, the numbers are steadily increasing. And in July, we had 70% of what was pre-COVID levels. And I think the gap probably attributes to reduction in primary care presentation and changes to pathways that we've had to experience as GPs. And we've been having to say, you must do this test or that test, and actually that may have reduced some referrals. Now, the 62-day cancer patient backlog, which is basically when patients wait over 62 days for the treatment from referral, increased to about 400 pre-pandemic to 1,600 at the peak of the pandemic, but is now reduced to about 800 across NCL. So I think what NCL trusts have said to the NCL CCG is that they're going to be prioritising those that are urgent and clinically urgent, and they're developing treatment plans for them. So I think there are some capacity issues for diagnostics and treatment in hospitals at the moment, and so they're trying to prioritise those. But a surgical hub for NCL has been set up to match demand and capacity, including use of the independent sector hospitals, for example, the BMI and Spires hospitals, and you might have seen patients going there for treatment. And I think the recovery plan for cancer focuses on the use of the surgical clinical prioritisation group for cancer meeting and talking about demand and capacity and involving those independent hospitals. But also there's a London endoscopy transformation recovery programme that was initiated right at the end of June, and they're talking about how they could change from a 3-day-a-week endoscopy list to a 6-day-a-week endoscopy list across NCL jointly to try and mop up the backlog. So that's something that's coming soon. The next thing I want to talk about was diagnostics. And as you know, from March to April, activity reduced significantly, but began to increase in May. And we all know about the issues that we've been experiencing, and particularly long wait lists have been going on. Now, we've all probably been doing some sort of reviews of and rag rating the lists of ultrasounds that we were sent back. And as you know, people are referring to InHealth. Now, some of the feedback's been that somebody's been asked to go to Waterloo at InHealth when they feel actually they want to go to Golders Green, for example. But what we're saying is the waits are really 8 weeks, and somebody could get a Waterloo appointment in 5 weeks, for example. And so what's really important is we tell people, that is the current situation. Everyone's working to try and clear those lists. So some people might choose to go into town, but what we don't want patients to do is call back to the practices and say, can I be referred to Golders Green? InHealth is just InHealth, and that's really important that we kind of maybe be mindful when we refer patients. And also, I just wanted to give you an update. And in this recovery program, I think the plan is by October of this year, CT and MRI and non-obstetric ultrasound should be really trying to be back up to 100% capacity. And certainly by March, they should completely clear all backlogs. I know that seems a long time away, so I think we really need to push trust on getting that back early, I think. But certainly, December of the end of the year, they're planning to more mature organisation across NCL so they can work together and try and get a programme together so we're all on the same page across NCL. And what I mean by that, for example, I was on a diagnostic meeting yesterday, and although the Royal Free have got really long waits, the Whittington, for example, really don't have long waits, and they've got very short waits. And I think that's what we mean about trying to make sure it's kind of equal and they're supporting each other. Just to remind, I've had quite a few questions in the week about what I mentioned on Tuesday about the new forms and things coming for ultrasound requests and other type of urgent scans. And just in the chat bar, I'll put a link to the intranet site in case anyone wants to have a reminder of what I talked about on Tuesday. The next thing I wanted to talk about was cervical screening. Guidance was published by Public Health at the start of this week, I think on Monday or Tuesday, that now we should be going back to business as usual. And the guidelines are recommending that individuals who have discharged from colposcopy following treatment have their next routine cervical screen 6 months after discharge, and they're saying that through the GP. Now, I only found this out about a couple of weeks ago when historically patients would have a follow-up screen at the hospital, and then the hospital wrote back to me saying they were discharging this patient and I should organise the follow-up cervical screen. So I did contact the hospital. I understand this is now national guidance that's suggesting that. And again, what I'll do is I'll just in the chat bar, I'm just going to show you the flowcharts for colleagues. I think it's important to be aware of that guidance because it is clearly a shift there. Not just in NCL, but nationally, so that we might be needing to do more smear tests in the community, so just be mindful of that. And I've just shared the link to that in the chat bar. The next thing I wanted to tell you about was NCL has recently been successful in securing some money from NHS England to fund a programme of work on increasing patient self-management through virtual group consultations and remote blood pressure monitoring, which I think is fantastic. We've been talking about this for a long time, really. And what the plan is that they're going to target patients with 1 or more LTC and particularly poorly controlled blood pressure. So that's the blood pressure above 150 systolic and 90 diastolic, because we know that those patients are at higher risk of complications, particularly from COVID-19. And the idea is that this money will support us to run virtual group consultations to help this group learn to better self-manage their long-term condition or provide patients with blood pressure monitors. So often I'm telling patients, you need to go and buy a blood pressure monitor. And actually this programme might help fund those patients having a blood pressure monitor, which I think is a really welcomed thing. And then it's about really those patients being able to themselves manage their conditions and draw on peer coaching and social prescribing. So if you want to sign up to that, you need to email somebody in NCL, and I'll pop that person's email address in the chat bar so that you can, if you want to express your interest in that, then you can do that. So I'm going to move to the chat bar this morning. Tal, you've got a question about X-rays under the Royal Free are shown as not available for urgent and non-urgent requests. That's correct. So if you look at the forms, if you look at the website I've just put on the internet website, the form now has chest X-ray on there. Other X-rays you can do routinely through the Royal Free, but they won't be deemed as urgent. So it could be just email the Royal Free as we've been doing previously. Let's say you wanted a cervical or a lumbar spine X-ray, that would be the old route where you would do the T-Quest and then forward that T-Quest via email to the Royal Free email address, and the patient will be contacted. But that wouldn't be an urgent. They could be waiting, 5-6 days. Whereas the idea of a chest X-ray is they wait a day or so. And Lyndon's asked a question about what funding has been allocated to primary care for the transfer of work. I don't think anything has, as far as I'm aware, Lyndon. It's a really good question, and I certainly think that, that's a really good point to bring up. I don't know the answer to that, so perhaps it's something that we can think about if we do see an increase in numbers, flagging. Tao, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thanks, Nick. Maybe I've mistaken looking at the table. It looks as if for routines one under the Royal Free Trust, it shows that it's not available. So maybe that was my question.
Sure. So it is available. It might just be a mistake, but definitely okay. The routine one is available just as a normal route.
That's my experience. We do email it, and then they get called quite actually not far away from when we call them. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. Karen, you asked the question, is there a way to send TQuest blood forms online? So absolutely there is for any patient that's going to the Royal Free Chase Farm or Edgware. However, if they're attending Finchley, the patient will need to collect a form from your practice. Tao, you still got your hand up. Is that an old hand?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. So I've come to the end of my webinar. I just wanted to let you know this will be my last webinar today as we head towards business as usual. And certainly I think, oh, Charlotte, you've got your hand up.
I'll go after you, Nick. Go on.
So just going to say it's been really nice to speak to you all every twice a week, and I hope you found these webinars useful. And I'm sure you'll continue to get updates through the bulletins and other forms and the intranet. I'll stop there. Charlotte, you've got your hand up.
I just really want to say thank you to Nick. I mean, this is the most enormous amount of work and effort that's gone into doing these, and you've started them on the 19th of May and carried them on for 3 months now. And it's been tremendous. There's been a really good community of people who've come on. I, for one, have really enjoyed joining them, and they've been given a sense of knowledge and a sense of comfort during a really uncertain time, and that's been tremendous help to Barnet, and the amount of time and effort you put into them has been incredible. So just really want to say thank you. I just wonder if everyone that wants to come off mute, if they want to give Nick a clap, because it's the most tremendous amount of work to have done it. So really, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And have a good weekend, everyone. And I'm sure I'll see you around very soon. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cheers.